and you're watching FlashPoint. Listen, your pen, your this paper, is one of those programs where you need to record this. You need to get your pen, your paper, get your notebooks out because you're going to make notes. I promise you, you're going to make notes. You're going to want to write some of this stuff down. Because I got two gentlemen on tonight, two doctors that we are going to break some of this down of what you're hearing in the news. Of course, with me is Dr. Peter McCullough and our friend, Dr. Darcy Brunk. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you on tonight. Let me start. I want to talk about vaccines, Dr. McCullough, and I'll start with you because we're gonna split this program in half, and we're going to talk about facts that you need to know, and then facts that you need to know to get better, or things, how do we transition that? And at the core of all of this, and you guys, FlashPoint Army, you know this, we must take control of our own health. And really, it's always been that way, but I think we're finally picking up on that and realizing that we have to take control of that, and we have to make sure that we're involved and not just depend on somebody else to look out for our best interest. All right, so let's get started with vaccines, and this is Dr. Peter McCullough testifying about how it's actually linked to death. Watch.
And do you have any science to back up your opinion?
The best data are autopsies. So in the largest autopsy series published to date, I know because I'm the senior author, of all the deaths we examined, and we re-reviewed them. We had an adjudication committee. We had ways of arbitration deciding on did the vaccine cause death. The answer is, of these cases that came in for autopsy after vaccination, 73.9% of individuals, it was determined that the vaccine was the cause of death. First author is Holscher and colleagues. He's sitting right behind me.
All right, so Dr. McCullough, I mean, my generation, we didn't go to the doctor. You just didn't go. I mean, something had to be like hanging off, or, you know, you're in a car wreck or something. So, and now we have a whole generations later of people that go to the doctor, you know, because they sneeze one time. And we all thought that vaccines were our friend. And now we're understanding that's not the case at all.
Well, let me clarify, Gene. That testimony was regarding the COVID vaccines.
Right.
So not general childhood vaccines. That's the COVID vaccine. So yeah, the COVID vaccines are on the general childhood schedule, and they're still recommended for most adults. The recommendations have volleyed back and forth. And I can tell you, when somebody dies shortly after a vaccine and when an autopsy is ordered, of those available, yes, about 74% would be clinically adjudicated, the death caused by the vaccine. So for many reasons, my general advice is to not take COVID vaccines. We are so far through this pandemic. The virus is mutated to a much milder form, and most of us have had it now. You know, deep searches find that about 90% of the U.S. population has already been through COVID. So there's not much rationale to keep vaccinating.
So, and thank you for clarifying that, because I didn't mention that, so thank you for that, the COVID vaccine. But, you know, what you know, as we walked through this, and you've been on for the last almost 6 years, off and on, America was suddenly understanding, wait a minute, I shouldn't get a vaccine, I should get a vaccine, my doctor's telling me to get this COVID vaccine, I don't feel good about it. And our stance here at FlashPoint has always been, you make your own decision about a vaccine, but we want to stand up for your rights to be able to free to make that choice. You should not be coerced. You shouldn't be forced to get a vaccine in order to serve in the military, in order to go to your job, in order to be whatever. Enforcing that is not freedom at all. And that's what we stood for. Still stand by that. So what's your concern? Now, you said 90% have gone through this. What's the concern now as you look on the vaccine landscape of what's out there? Do you have any concerns looking forward? Are we up for, do you think there's another COVID type thing that we should be preparing for?
The current strain is called cicada, Gene, named after the giant bug. Now, you may have some of those out at Eagle Mountain Lake. You know, there's tons of them up in Oklahoma and Kansas City. They make the loud noise at night in the summertime. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Definitely.
Cicada means rebirth. The reason why the most recent strain is named that way, it's like as if the virus is, undergoing a rebirth to a more resistant, vaccine-resistant strain. So far, I do have a patient in the hospital right now with it, an 87-year-old a patient who went on the ventilator, shockingly. So, we still have to be on our toes. It's still out there. In general, risks of vaccination outweigh the theoretical benefits. And not only that, but for sure, all the COVID vaccines theoretically only had a few months of duration in terms of their protection.
So if someone got the vaccine, I'm going to ask all the questions you probably get all the time. If someone got the vaccine and they're going, oh man, I wish I'd never gotten that, I don't want to do that, should they continue with the boosters? Should they just get away from it? What should they do?
Yeah, I think in general, a healthy person, no more COVID vaccines. Those with problems, I've published on the McCullough protocol-based spike detoxification. That's the combination of nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin. And there's many. If you go on Amazon right now, you type in spike detoxification, you'll find dozens of offerings, and I think that's fine. People in general need some of these natural products that assist the body in clearing out the spike protein.
All right, let me go over you, Dr. Brunk. I know you're in the field of stem cells, but I want to get you to weigh in here on the conversation. Vaccines, what do you think?
Here's the thing, Gene. I think you nailed it perfectly. It's really our right to be and stay well. It's our right to choose. You and I both understand and know that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, right? There's a scripture that tells us that. And therefore, we need to honor God with our body. And this is something that you as an individual, you need to ask yourself, what is that vaccine looking to accomplish? Like Dr. McCullough said, what are the risks? And, I'll say I work in the regenerative field, and this extends not just through the COVID. But, I work with a massive populace of young children that even through the childhood vaccines, there's been a lot of injuries and consequences that these children and these families are living through the rest of their lives. And so I agree with Dr. McCullough in that we need to have a choice. We need to look at this. And I saw a lot of injuries with clients that received the COVID vaccine that came to try and have their bodies turn around and rebuild itself and kind of go back to the normal. And many of the doctors across the country agree that this is not something you should look at continuing with. And, it's always interesting, Gene, the timing of things that you're talking about. Dr. McCullough, you're talking about the next virus. Interesting that the timing's coming out for us 6 months prior to November.
Yes, it is. It is for sure. All right.
Well, remember last year, Gene, it was razor blade sore throat. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
There's a theme here. It's almost as if the virology, the CDC viral strains, have a marketing angle for the next booster.
Oh, you don't think it's political at all, do you? Come on. All right, we'll leave that there. We'll move on. All right, let me show you. RFK Jr. posted this about mercury, and I want to show you. Well, let me just play the clip. Let me show you what he said about mercury in vaccines. Watch.
Article 4 of the convention calls on parties to cut mercury use by phasing out listed mercury-added products. But in 2010, as the treaty took shape, negotiators made a major exception. Thimerosal-containing vaccines were carved out of the regulation. The same treaty that began to phase out mercury in lamps and cosmetics chose to leave it in products injected into babies, pregnant women, and the most vulnerable among us. We have to ask why. Why do we hold a double standard for mercury? Why do we call it dangerous in batteries, in over-the-counter medications and makeup, but acceptable in vaccines and dental fillings? Thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that has never undergone proper safety testing in humans. Hundreds of peer-reviewed studies identify it as a potent neurotoxin, a mutagen, a carcinogen, and an endocrine disruptor. Thimerosal's own label requires it to be treated as hazardous material and warns against ingestion. There is not a single study that proves it safe. That's why in July of this year, the United States closed the final chapter on the use of thimerosal as a vaccine preservative.
Okay, Dr. McCullough, okay, is reason, I'm trying to understand someone deciding, or a group of someone's deciding, all right, let's put mercury in this because it's a good preservative, and just toss out the concerns. I mean, the American people are sitting home going, well, this makes a lot of sense. Why does it take now that we suddenly are looking at this and saying, let's get rid of it?
Gene, you know, about 100 years ago, there used to be a paste that mothers could put on the teeth of children who were teething, little babies. And you know, it was a mercury paste. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And we've learned so much about mercury toxicity. It's, you know, it actually affects the brain. It's called Mad Hatter's syndrome. So RFK's right. We shouldn't be anywhere near mercury in our products. What happened in 1986 is the vaccine manufacturers were given full liability protection. So they had no incentives to make their products safer. So if the production line put mercury in them, they had no reason to remove it. So finally, the U.S. government stepped forward and said, listen, get all the mercury out of the vaccine supply. It should have been done decades ago, and I think it's a good move.
What do you think? Let me go to you, Dr. Brunk. What do you think about this, mercury in vaccines?
Well, to be direct, I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to preserve, calling it a preservative, because it was quite the opposite. You know, it caused so much trouble, so much havoc. Like I said, I work with clients all over the country. And you know, the narrative is that even for the autistic populace, Gene, that, well, this is a genetic predisposition. And I simply, maybe before it was, but the autism that we're seeing now, it was not a genetic predisposition. It was a toxic poison. And the parents that I talk with are very clear. And when their child received a vaccine, they went from seemingly normal development to a shadow of themselves. And so I think we go back to, what is it as an American in our rights to be able to choose, even if it's faith-based or not, what is going into our body? And so thank you. I agree. RFK nailed it. Mercury should never have been in there. We've known it's been there. And even still, Gene, is it going to be in there? How do they clear it out of the vaccine regimen that is already in the doctor's offices? And, you know, diminishing. Also, I think we need to give credit to them and the administration, because they diminished the vaccine schedule. Think about this. We were talking COVID, but I know I've gone into the children, you know, hepatitis vaccine for a child that's born. Well, why would we do that? Let's use logic and allow the American people to look at this and make choices, because we're not in an epidemic with any of these situations. It is our right to be able to be and stay well. And I think that's the importance that the American people need to wake up and they need to ask for. And I think RFK is doing a great job of doing that.
Sure is. Sure is. Let me show you this. This is the CDC is sued for hyper vaccination. Watch.
Being sued for operating an illegal and unconstitutional 72-dose hyper-vaccination schedule. All 72 of these doses from birth to age 18, not one has been tested in combination. And particularly the cumulative safety of 72 doses was never studied. So it's literally just experimental at this point. Nobody knows what's going to happen with all of these doses. And that's exactly why they're being sued, to kind of dismantle this dangerous program. And so this is huge. This whole vaccine ideology is now crumbling down as people begin to understand the real risks and just how absurd it is. And even Trump highlighted that. He said it's a travesty. We're injecting beautiful babies with all these, you know, toxic loads of needles. It's stupid, and it's got to stop.
Okay, Dr. McCullough, there's 72 vaccines, and we're not here to knock every vaccine, and that's not the purpose. But it brings up an interesting point about the cumulative safety. Is that something that's never been studied before?
It's a giant issue. Remember, this was, so there's two doctors suing the FDA over not having combination safety analyses. Then you had Trump, who dropped the vaccine schedule from, 17 vaccine preventable diseases to 11, dropped it by 55 doses. And then the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Physicians, and a whole class of organizations, they sued HHS and RFK, and then they've brought it back right up to normal. So all this progress on vaccine safety and vaccine freedom has been erased in the courts, and it shouldn't be going on in the courts. We should be bringing all the major societies into Washington. We should be examining vaccine safety. The greatest concern I have is the same as so many, is that when all of these vaccines are given in combination and the kids get sick afterwards, around a year and a half, Gene, they get 16 things all together. If I gave 16 drugs to a patient, for sure they're going to get sick. Well, these kids, some of them get really sick. They develop brain inflammation called encephalitis, and then shortly after that, they regress into a classic autism picture. So our analyses suggest that combination vaccines in a susceptible child are a risk factor for autism, and it explains why autism is skyrocketing in terms of its frequency as the number of vaccines that kids take continues to go up. So,
Doc McCullough, you got a lot of people watching that are either young parents or they're grandparents, and they've got grandkids about to be born. Can you refuse these vaccines? Can you say I don't want those at a typical hospital situation? I mean, what rights do parents have? Because I think most people just kind of go in and go, "Hey, you're the doctor. Do it. You know best," and that's where we found out it's not good.
Well, we should always have the right, actually, for any medicine or vaccine. And the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, one of the oldest organizations, in the year 2000 passed a resolution that there should be no mandates for any medicine or vaccine. But in the state of Texas, there are standard operating procedures. And in Texas, we have medical, religious, and philosophical exemptions. So you can simply object on philosophical grounds. When the kids get to school age, you have to download a form, fill it out, and get it notarized and file it, and you're good.
Yeah.
Here are the principles. Vaccines are far safer if they're given later in life, number one, and if they're given individually. And I think we're at a point where far too many are given. We've had such advances in sanitation, nutrition, and hygiene that none of the vaccines are particularly compelling.
Yeah. So you said maybe giving them later in life. Give me what you think, your opinion on when is a good time later in the child's life should they be getting that vaccine?
Well, let's look at autism,
right?
Tics, seizures. Almost all of that develops before age 4. So if you can kind of bump that out beyond age 4, I think when we get to the older years in adult life, it's fine. So, for instance, I took the hepatitis B shot, but it's like when I went to medical school.
Right.
And I was going to get exposed potentially to an IV drug abuser. But, unless a baby has a hepatitis B positive mother, and they're all tested, there are some hepatitis B positive mothers. They're largely immigrants, by the way. They get treated with an antiviral, and the mother and the baby gets treated. For all the other babies born, 3.3 million healthy babies, there is zero clinical indication or medical necessity for hepatitis B vaccine at birth. And even when it's given then, it doesn't protect the kids later on, in adult life. So it's given at the wrong time anyway.
It's just great information.
And Gene,
go ahead, Doc.
If I could jump in, absolutely. Thank you, sir. There is a thing that Texas does, and I would encourage every state, because that's really where this needs to start, is at a state level. Texas has parental exemption, and what that means is you as a parent can call in, you get on a list, there's a certification, and you can say no. And like Dr. McCullough said, there is religious exemption, there is philosophical. And, so each state can have it where you are parentally exempt from this. And then this is the other thing we've really got to consider as we add things, because I know that, we want to eradicate as many diseases as we can. But I'm going to tell you, I think the best defense to the next virus is a strong immune system. And that's simple. Our bodies are miraculously and wonderfully made. Healing and regeneration are already encoded in our DNA. And to live a healthy lifestyle and do the things, our body was created to fight these things even as they change. Our immune system knows how to do that. I mean, look at chickenpox vaccine, and we added that, and suddenly, we're going to have an epidemic of situations, I believe, in adults where they're going to have shingles, and that's something that chickenpox was a fairly unoffensive thing. I mean, you remember that? I remember when I got it, and it was like, oh, you got it. Your brother, your sister do it, and everyone just gets through it, and it's done. Now we got this vaccination that is causing all these side effects, and I got to tell you, I know people that are suffering from shingles. That is called shingles parasitica. That is some painful stuff. So why try and eradicate something the body handles simply when you can and do a vaccine for it when you can just let the immune system do what it needs to do? I think, again, the parents need to have a choice, and I really believe that starts at the state level.
Wow. This is great stuff. I remember you said, I remember getting the chicken pox, and that was one thing. But I remember getting the mumps. You don't ever hear about that anymore. I mean, Dr. McCullough, did you ever get the mumps?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get.
Now listen, here's the thing, Gene. Not every person is the illness a benign illness. So let me give you an example of someone at my church whose face is paralyzed on one side and his face is drawn over. And one time I asked him, I said, how did that happen? He said, I got mumps as a kid,
right,
and it was a severe case, and I lost my hearing, and my whole facial nerve was paralyzed. Well, listen, I can tell you, anything that the virus can do, the vaccine can do it too, because it's a live attenuated vaccine. And sadly, he's about my age. Back then, we didn't know how to handle this. When we get these encephalitic features of a virus or a vaccine, we would give steroids and probably would have avoided the whole thing. So what we're finding out is there's risks and benefits of letting the disease happen or taking a vaccine. On average, if someone is healthy at baseline, it's better to just go natural. Because I got chickenpox as a kid, I'm very unlikely to get shingles as an adult. Now, someone who takes the chickenpox vaccines, like my kids, unfortunately, they're going to have a higher risk of shingles as an adult. And that's what the data show.
Wow. Okay. All right, we're going to go to break a little bit early because I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about what do you do from here? How do you do the natural part? And we're going to talk about with Dr. McCullough and Dr. Darcy Brunk about what you can do to help yourself. All that on the other side. We'll see you in a minute.
Join us at FlashPoint Live San Diego on April 9th and 10th at Awaken Church San Marcos campus. Join Gene and Terry Bailey and their guests, Pastor Jurgen Matthesius, Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Lorenzo Sewell, Pastor Rob McCoy, Rick Green, Andrew and Nolene Cedric, and Martin and Millicent Cedric. You are going to be trained, equipped, and empowered during this dynamic 2-day event. For event details and to register for this free event, go to fparmy.com/events.
Melting ice is exposing shipping lanes, rare earth minerals, and military corridors that will shape the next century of global power. And at the center of it all is Greenland. Sea lanes and early warning defenses that protect the United States. Russia already knows this. China does too. In the Arctic Imperative, Gene Bailey explains why securing Greenland is no longer optional.
Hi, Victory Channel. I wanted to come on here real quick and tell you about what's happening in San Marcos this week. Listen, I want to see it. We will be live from 9 to 11 Central Time. That's 10 to midnight Eastern Time. But we will not be on at our normal time slot at 7 p.m. But we are doing a very special San Diego special FlashPoint program. You want to see it, but you're going to need to go to fptn.com, or our YouTube channel to catch it. We'll see you in San Marcos. We're back. Listen, I want to encourage you to go share this with all your family and friends. I mean, there's some good stuff. Whenever I have these guys on, I'm always learning something from Dr. McCullough and Dr. Darcy, Brunk, things that I didn't know. And this is, remember, education is half the battle. If you can get educated on what to look at, like you've just heard in this first half, you will know how to respond. So let's talk about responding and where we go from here. But before we do, let me show you maybe one more reason. This is my opinion. I want to play this clip about over $500 million healthcare and COVID fraud scheme right now. Watch.
Every day, Department of Justice investigators and prosecutors work to punish those who commit fraud. For example, just this week, and it's only Tuesday, a criminal defendant was sentenced and the department obtained 2 additional guilty pleas in matters totaling over $500 million in healthcare and COVID fraud. If you think about that, just since yesterday, we had a guilty plea in a $160 million healthcare enrollment fraud scheme and a sentencing in a $100 million COVID-19 fraud and a guilty plea in a $160 million healthcare fraud scheme as well. Each of these cases represents countless hours of dedication from the prosecutors and the federal agents and local law enforcement who work them. The Department of Justice is holding criminals accountable for stealing over $500 million from taxpayers. And across our U.S. attorney's offices all over this country, we currently have over 8,000 fraud matters underway.
All right, so over 8,000 fraud matters. You saw that $500 million. This is why it's very important where you go for health care. And we're not talking about just your doctor. Of course, your family doctor and the hospital and your surgeons and everything. You got to be careful. But you need to understand all the ancillary people that you need to go through for health care. There's a lot of people out there, and they're just there to either get your money or to get the government's money on your behalf. They're not there to help. So this is what we're going to get into this second half, is how you take back control of your health. And I want to start with you, Dr. McCullough, with the wellness company. Something that is fairly new to the market. You guys started this, and typically you don't see medical, I'll just call it like I say it, you don't see medical doctors going towards the natural side of health. You just, it's kind of unusual. I'm glad to see it. Why'd you do it?
Well, you know, it's a clear and present trend. We formed the wellness company in 2022. We've been, you know, one of the most successful new companies in America over the last 4 years, and have progressively grown. You know, have a global marketplace now, and you know, verticals of nutraceuticals and supplements and medical emergency kits. We have our own pharmacies, our telemedicine unit. We have a medical board of doctors. But our philosophy has been nature first, drugs last. And if you actually build it from that philosophy, there's a lot of things that can be handled naturally, Gene, without getting into prescription drugs. And remember, doctors don't make patients healthy. They're actually solving problems. Right. Patients themselves make themselves healthy.
So good. TWC.health. They can go there and learn more. Now, when they go to Flash, they get a little bit of help there with their purchases. I want to understand. Believe it or not, which is it's gotten a lot better, Doc, but there's still people trashing ivermectin. Oh, you shouldn't take ivermectin. But I see it loud and proud on your website.
It's true. Actually, big breaking news. The wellness company has conducted the first patient-reported outcome study of the use of ivermectin plus mebendazole, another anti-infective, in patients with cancer. And the top line result is 84% had a clinical benefit. This is in addition to surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. So, you know, the wellness company, in many ways, we're doing the innovation and research our government should be doing.
That's right.
And, you know, our government agencies should pick up on this and do large, prospective, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials. You know, where we are in cancer is we're stuck in what's called perverted incentives. So the cancer centers do what's called book and bill. So if they give an expensive chemotherapy, they make more money. They're not incentivized to give something that would be available as a generic drug combination like ours.
There you go. You guys, everybody here should check out the Wellness Company, twc.health/flash. Let me go over to you, and I'll come back to you, Dr. McCullough, in just a moment. But Dr. Darcy, yours is a little bit more complicated with Achieve Vitality, but I want people to understand, and I'm going to ask you these questions I ask you every time you're on, about stem cells. It gets scary. It's gotten a lot of bad rap out there. When you get a stem cell therapy, what does that mean? What is that?
That's a great question. First and foremost, I want everyone to understand that stem cells are donated from a newborn that is born. So after birth, be sure and envision this. When that first breath of life that God gives us comes into our body, we go from being slowly formed and knit in the womb to this exponential increase from a cellular moment. That is the most powerful time of our lives because we just got that breath of life. And that cord blood can be donated, and that's what goes to the FDA registered and regulated labs. And the great news, Gene, is we now have technology to take what used to be only for that child and do a process called factoring, where they can remove the red nucleated cells and the things that would require blood typing and genetic concerns. And simply what's left behind is the building blocks in the perfect ratios, proportions, and frequencies that God designed. So the easiest way to think about this is God used stem cells to build us. And what we used to think is stem cells would go and become the cell, we now know that a stem cell in your body actually goes to the area of problem. It's attracted to the loss of voltage. Many think it's inflammation, but it's the loss of voltage. And then it assesses that area. And then it uses that actual intelligence that God put into it, and it releases a message called messenger RNA. Where have we heard that before, I wonder? And so this is the actual message that God puts together from our cells. And then it goes to our DNA, and our DNA has the name of God written in it. And so think the message that our stem cells do go, and it's the message that's needed for the repair in that area. And then our body begins to rebuild. So I like to think of it this way from a faith-based standpoint. Stem cells are like the disciples of the body that are searching through your body to preach the gospel or the scripture or the message of healing in your body so that you can do what you were created to do. So quite simply, in my opinion, it's like putting the word of God straight into your body. And because God made our body, He's the author and the finisher. He miraculously made us in his image. Don't we think that he would give us that original message? That would give our body the ability to repair. It would be that actual intelligence. And that's what stem cells do in your body. And stem cell therapy or regenerative therapy has the ability to awaken that in your body, remind it how you did it before, much like when you pick up the Bible and you read a scripture and it tells you something you didn't understand before. It will tell your body that. And I want to end with this and throw it back over to you. I want to be clear about something. And Dr. McCullough would agree with this. And by the way, Doc, I've got both of your kits. Everyone should go to his wellness facility and get the kits that are prescribed to you. Very, very important. Number one, cancer has been shown to have its roots in, guess what? Mycotoxins and fungus, and many diseases have its roots in that. Again, going to the natural process of having a strong body to repair, restore, and rebuild, I believe is the best choice. Doc said natural before medication. We're not against medication, but it's important that you understand, thank God for medicine, because it has saved lives. I want to be clear. Medicine saves lives when it's used appropriately. It's designed to slow down the disease process. And then you are responsible for your body. So as you use a medication to slow it down, what was supposed to happen is then you make lifestyle choices and you find alternative therapies that awaken your body to repair, restore, and rebuild to mitigate the need of the medication. So medicine's not evil. It's just the misuse and abuse of it. And remember, FlashPoint Army, You are responsible for your body. And I ask you one question. When you take that pill, who forces you to swallow?
Right.
Right? It's your choice.
That's right. All right. So, Dr. Brunk, I got to ask you some questions that I know people at home are asking. Okay, so how do I know? Is there some kind of database? You know, you've got these stem cells from babies, and are they aborted babies? What about if did they get the vaccine? Does that pass through the cord blood to,
Great questions.
How do we know?
So, Gene, I've told you in the past in FlashPoint Army, I found out recently that I wasn't being fully transparent because we highly test the products. We do not accept COVID vaccinated donations. Not only do we check the medical records, we microscopically examine and serologically test. We do mycotoxin testing. But I often told everyone we do 21 serologic tests. It was incomplete. We actually do over 38 serologic tests and protocols to ensure safety of this donated after birth process. So healthy mom, healthy baby, live birth, this regenerative word, this regenerative message is donated when it's the only word I could use is unadulterated. It's not exposed to the toxins, the problems, and the signals of this world and your body. And think, Dr. McCullough, it's before all those childhood vaccines as well. And that's what goes to labs for that factoring. And that's what we use to awaken your body to repair, restore, and rebuild.
All right. So if I'm going to get stem cell treatment, what does that mean? Do I have to go to a hospital? How do I get that?
Great question. We actually, and I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of stem cell clinics out there, and we can cover this another time. Not all clinics, not all labs are the same. You need to do your research on that. At Achieve Vitality, we have partnerships all over the country, and you can call the number here and go to achievevitality.net/flash. And there'll be information that can be sent to you. We'll educate you on what's going on and what you can expect for your particular situation. And what I like to say is the power that created you is the power that heals you. And you are not your diagnosis. There's hope for healing. Use your medications to slow it down and then make the accurate choices, because you're responsible for your body. Think if you have children and grandchildren, your choices will dictate how you interact with them later. And so that's where you can utilize stem cells to help your body repair, because the problem is as we age, they decrease and decline. The older we get, the less we have. They're exposed to toxins and trauma, injury, memories. Then you add to it, vaccinations or the environment or anything like that. Think to awaken your body, turn that clock back. If degeneration is your problem, and that is the universal diagnosis, then regeneration is your solution. And I'm here to say there's hope for healing. And there's a QR code that you put up there as well that will get great information. And I want to throw it back over to the wellness clinic as well. It's not just about stem cells, because good ingredients make good cells, good lifestyles. Think your diet is what you eat, what you say, what you surround yourself with, and what you hear. Because the power of death and life is in the tongue, and they that love it eat of its fruit. So be careful what you say and what you accept, because your cells are listening more than your ears do.
All right. So let me... let's put up the Achieve Vitality website again. All right, so, Doc, if someone goes to this website, achievevitality.net/flash, they can find out more information, because we haven't even skimmed over. I mean, there's so much more data and things that everybody needs to know. Can they go there to get more information?
Yes, go to that there. You'll get information there. We have some books that you can download. There's an on-demand seminar, and we will continue to build that information so that you can know and decide for yourself what's best. And remember, it's regardless of what type of diagnosis you have, and age as well, by the way. I reference, one of my favorite people, I'll just say, we call her the warrior mom. Yeah, we work with a lot of children battling autism. And, I'll throw this in because she asked me, she said, listen, I'm going to talk to committees on this. What do you think we should talk about? I don't want stem cells to be something you'd be surprised that that insurance pays for, because then that price goes crazy. What I think the Trump administration should look at, I think that we should have tax credits for us taking care of our body. I think there should be a situation where we have deductions when you come in and say, listen, I'm going to step up and take care of myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm healthy. That's going to help the system completely. And that's where I think we should go, is that we have, again, the right to choose. So yes, go to the website there, and then we'll call you if you'd like to schedule a consultation, and one of my medical teams across the country can answer questions for you.
All right. Now, if there are people at home that go, I don't have the, we have viewers, believe it or not, that don't have the internet. They've got their cable TV. You actually set up an 800 number for FlashPoint folks. If you need to call, you can call that number, 800-316-9244, to get more information. Of course, you have to do that during business hours. And anything else they need to know, when they call, you can pretty much answer all their questions, whether they call or go to the web, right?
You know, I'd encourage you to go to the web and go to our website and watch the on-demand seminars. That will give you all the information regarding how regenerative therapy works. Then reach out to us and we'll talk to you individually about your situation and how regeneration can help. And I do want you to know this: what type of people are candidates for this? Anyone who wants to live younger and stronger for longer. We work with professional athletes, high school athletes, like you heard with the autistic populace, children that are fighting that toxic burden of that mercury that RFK was talking about, all the way to, you know, my father died of a heart attack before we had this. Every time we have heart data, the heart improves. And I see, Gene, the absence of my father's wisdom in my children. And so I didn't have this for my father. And I'm passionate because I have it for yours if you're a father or a mother. And that's where I say, listen, just be responsible for your body. Going back to the scripture where it says your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. It was paid for with a price. So honor God with your body. And then I'm going to add the New American Darcy version and encourage your state to be able to give you the laws and the rules that allow you to make that choice as well.
All right. All right, we're not done yet. I want to talk about something. I got one last video I want to play. And I'm, you know, it's bad when it's news that hospitals are now going to serve real food. Really?
Breaking news, a safety and quality special alert was just issued by CMS under the guidance of Secretary Kennedy. We are asking all hospitals in the country to use the dietary guidelines that were put in place in January by Health and Human Services, the United States Department of Agriculture, to get those foods onto the tables where patients can eat them in their rooms. We know this is an effective program. It's already been started in other parts of Florida. It's wonderful to be able to extend it today to Miami.
Yeah, and this is something that the hospitals actually like. We've spoken to them. It gives them the ability to change the food in their systems. A high-quality, healthy food that's going to keep patients healthy. Hospital food is notoriously appalling. And the question is, why are we giving bad food to patients who are trying to recover?
That's a great question, Dr. McCullough. Why are we giving bad food to people we want to recover?
You know, you're so right. I think hospitals ought to be just as good as the Ritz-Carlton.
Come on.
You know what I mean? My mom was just in the hospital here in Dallas. Sadly, she had a stroke and she recovered, and we watched that, you know, hospital food roll in. Hospitals have a long way to go to really, you know, make people feel like they're in a place to get well. And listen, if they're getting the stimulus from HHS to, you know, behaviorally or even financially to do it, they should do it. Hospitalization should not be this horrific experience. I think the hospitals can make it much more of a positive health experience for them.
All right, so Dr. McCullough, if someone is looking for a family doctor and they're, let's say they're older and they don't have a primary care physician, and what should they, I want to keep this as simple as I can. What should they be looking for? And really, it doesn't matter how old you are. In a family doctor, Is there any guidelines we need to be aware of or things we should look for in looking for a new primary care physician?
Yeah, I think, a big separator now since the pandemic is to ask the doctor or doctor's office, did they take COVID vaccines? And do they support COVID vaccination now? If a doctor at this juncture, with all of the data showing the side effects and the fatal adverse events that happen with COVID, if they still support the COVID vaccine, personally, I wouldn't see them.
Yeah, run, run hard, run fast. I'll go to you, Dr. Darcy. What do you think? What would you do?
I think it's very important to interview your doctors. I agree. If the COVID vaccine is a thing, I would run. If you're a young person and you're looking at, even the childhood vaccination record, if you're walking in the room and they've got that thing pulled up already, that's probably not the doctor for you. At the very least, like Dr. McCullough said, become informed and at least delay it. And one other thing I'd say, there was a well-known cardiologist I was speaking with. Doc, I think Dr. McCullough, you and I were on the panel, and we talked about when you go to the hospital, when you go to the doctor with a severe situation, always bring someone with you. You need to have an advocate there that's educated and they're listening to what's happening, because many times you start to go down this algorithm of protocols of testing, like a gentleman I talked to today that is receiving, regenerative therapy to activate and awaken and have his body help his heart to get better. He went into the doctor and they went down this barrage of tests. And before he knew it, they were 30 days later, he was scheduled for, having a protocol done. And so always bring an advocate with you. And I think that's what you get to do, and look for the doctors that have alternative therapies and they use medication. Because again, medicine's not bad when it's used appropriately. They use medication to slow down what's happening. And then they give you alternatives and instruction on how you can change your lifestyles, what you can eat, the exercises you can do, and the therapies that you can acquire, like what we do, to get your life back. That's the kind of doctor I'd go see.
All right. That's good. This is great advice. Dr. McCullough, what is on the horizon for you? I want to know, what are you working on? I like to follow you and see what you're doing because you're kind of on the leading edge. What are your concerns and what are you the most excited about?
Well, one thing I want to let everyone know is the McCullough Foundation report on the determinants of autism spectrum disorder, which concluded, and it was definitive, that the big panels of vaccines given to children are a risk factor for autism. That's now been fully accepted and will be in the peer-reviewed literature.
Wow.
And it's not going to be erased or censored. So the truth is out there. I think parents that are looking at a routine childhood schedule are looking at a significant risk of autism or seizures or neurodevelopmental problems or allergic diseases like food allergies, allergic dermatitis, and rhinitis. And they're going to have to look at that very carefully. A recent paper by Vesuvian and colleagues in JAMA showed 60% of parents are not going to go through with the full vaccine schedule, that they are going to, make some choices. Many healthy children with healthy parents are going to go completely natural until far later in life where they'll choose vaccines as adults. I think where we're going in terms of some very exciting developments at the Wellness Company involve peptides. Peptides, both topical use, actually we use it in the mouth, considered topically, but they have systemic effects to regenerate as well as on the skin for general musculoskeletal health and a whole variety of conditions. So look at peptides as an emerging form of therapy. These natural nutraceuticals that seem to have more medicinal effects, but they're natural. And getting away from so many pharmaceuticals. I prescribe drugs every day, but I can tell you in the last 5 years plus, I'm prescribing less drugs and working more with natural products.
So, all right, Doc, so explain to our audience, what is a peptide?
A peptide is a string of amino acids less than 50 in length, and the Federal Trade Commission says we can use them without a prescription. They're used in topical makeup products, but very importantly, we use them in what's called micro GLP drugs, which mimic GLP and help people lose weight. They're used for a variety of regenerative conditions. BP 157 is a lead. One of our products, we actually rub it on our joints, is called TheraBlue. So not only does it relieve pain, but it tries to stimulate some regeneration. So I think you're going to hear a lot more about peptides because of their safety profile. Everything we've been talking about today, by the way, is, it's safety first.
Right.
That we've got a safety profile that we really, know we're okay there. Now it's just a matter of finding the right applications and the dose and duration.
Any concerns going forward here, Doc? What's your biggest concern?
My biggest concern at this point in time is this politicization that we've seen in Washington. Now the courts are going to be deciding these vaccine issues. It's now not even HHS or doctors. It's the courts that are going to decide. I'm greatly concerned about this. I hope HHS can bring in all the doctors groups and let's get back to the work that we do in presenting data, identifying issues, framing discussions, getting a consensus on an issue, and then driving it for public policy. Those are the proper steps. I think we're beyond the division of COVID. We're beyond this right-left division in medicine. It shouldn't be political. It should be collaborative.
All right, let me go to you, Dr. Brunk. I want the same question. What concerns you, and what are you the most excited about?
Like Dr. McCullough said, what's interesting is when you start to get situations where a court is making a decision and, it's called, there's a process. I've worked with an attorney that this happened to. There's this thing that's even called medical kidnapping, where a child or someone can go into a hospital and then because the hospital administrators believe that the parent's not doing the appropriate thing, because it might be alternative, the state takes custody of them. And I think we need to be very careful. Now, obviously, if there's child abuse, we want to intervene quickly. But we're not talking about child abuse. We're talking about our rights. I would say it's in our Bill of Rights to choose, what we want to use and do to be and stay well, that, like Dr. McCullough said, is safe. What I'm most excited about, actually, I grabbed the article on it. I'm going to read it real quick. We all saw it on X when RFK, it was October 25th, where he said, FDA's war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and here it is. Listen to this. Anything else that advances human health and can't, or I would say shouldn't be patented by Big Pharma. So I'm excited that because of the populace, because of the FlashPoint army, administrations and courts and state legislators are listening. So what I'm excited about is step up, elect the officials into the positions that protect your right to be and stay well, and then take the responsibility for you to make the right choices. And remember that, medicine is something that, it has a purpose. It has a use, just like surgery has a purpose and a use. And when we have it, thank God we've got the ability, for example, to transplant organs. But Gene, the goal is not to need that. And so I'm excited that even the peptide regimen has come in and they're taking the qualification down a little bit so that the populace can accept that. And I'll say this one thing. Remember that what you have is a supply and demand world. In other words, medicine is supply and demand. Our generation, this age is the age that said we're questioning this. It's our children that are saying, I want more. So that's what's important, not just to make the right choices for our children and their health. Like, again, the parents battling for their child's health when it is a vaccine injury-related autism case. But it's demand demand the health and make the right choices. And when you do that, the demographic shifts, Gene, and it goes into where the medical world must come in, and big pharma doesn't make money, not the good big pharma, the whatever the bad one is. They don't make money if you don't buy it. And so it's a choice thing. And that's what I'm excited about, is there is a demographic shift and the people are demanding health.
And you're exactly right. And that's what's been most encouraging over the last, we've seen a transition over the last 6 years where people are suddenly going, okay, wait a minute, I need to check about where does this meat come from? Where do these vegetables, where are they grown? There has been an overall increase of awareness, and I think that's a very good thing. And so I want to talk to you, those watching here tonight. As you've watched these two gentlemen in their respective fields, you need to understand, again, when we started this program, we talked about you need to know what's going on. You need to continue to educate yourself. I mean, phenomenal reports from Dr. McCullough and the foundation about what they've been able to discover and what they've been able to get into the medical journals. I mean, this is a big deal, but it doesn't help if you don't know about it. And that's why we're here. We're here to help you understand and to get you to go into the right place. So let me go through them again. You want to know more about the wellness company, go to the twc.health/flash, and there you'll get a special rate on things that you're looking to purchase. Go through all of that. It's a great website, a good company, solid company, and something you need, that's there, and you can follow the links there as well for Dr. McCullough. And of course, for Achieve Vitality, if you want more information, I mean, we didn't really get into too much on the stem cells, but it's more popular and more popular. You're hearing about it more and more. It's very important where you go, and we didn't really get into that tonight, but I want to make sure that you are careful about what you put into your body. Obviously, we're being careful about the food we put in. You need to be careful about what doctor you go to and any treatments you go. Make sure that you do your own investigation. Remember, your health is your responsibility. And yes, we're going to pray. Yes, we're going to do everything spiritually to be healthy and whole. But we must understand you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and that includes your physical body. All right, I got a minute left. 30 seconds. Dr. McCullough, wrap it up. Final thoughts.
Well, listen, just thanks so much, Gene, for shedding light on this. Remember, individual health is a personal responsibility. The role of doctors is to address problems. We're problem focused. I'd much rather see people be able to solve these things, amongst themselves or with other care providers. And when those things fail, then they can see me for the prescription medications. Absolutely. All right, Dr. Brunk, you got 30 seconds, and I mean 30. Don't go over. Go ahead. Final thought.
I'd say with long life, God wants to satisfy you. And if degeneration is your problem, I'm here to tell you it is. At a cellular level, then regeneration is your solution. Healing and regeneration are absolutely encoded in your DNA, and you can live younger and stronger for longer. It's your responsibility to make those choices.
It is. All right, thank you, Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Darcy Brunk. Thank you for being on FlashPoint. Always come back here and bring us up to speed on what's going on in our world. Listen, I know you enjoyed this. Make sure you share this program. Go to the websites. Look forward to good health. We'll see you next time.
Hey folks, Dennis Quaid here. Now I'm sure you've worked hard to build up your savings and secure your future. Now, that's something that we all care about. And that's exactly why I've been buying gold and silver for decades. It's not just about the value, though yes, they've held their worth. For me, it's about security for my family. So, if you're looking for a way to help safeguard your savings, I recommend my partners at Goldco. They've got a free gold and silver kit with all the information you'll need to make an informed decision. And hey, you might even qualify for some free bonus silver and a limited edition Ronald Reagan silver coin while supplies last. So don't wait. Help protect your financial future the American way.
Join us at FlashPoint Live San Diego on April 9th and 10th at Awaken Church San Marcos campus. Join Gene and Terry Bailey and their guests, Pastor Jurgen Matthesius, Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Lorenzo Sewell, Pastor Rob McCoy, Rick Green, Andrew and Nolene Cedric, and Martin and Millicent Cedric. You are going to be trained, equipped, and empowered during this dynamic 2-day event. For event details and to register for this free event, go to fparmy.com/events.
This is the FlashPoint Television Network.